Hi, I'm Karen. Welcome to my kitchen. Today we're talking turkey, and I don't mean Thanksgiving. So stick around because on today's show, I'm going to show you one simple recipe you can make 3 different ways.
Kick it.
If you're like me, you really want to be healthy, but sometimes it's not that easy because you love that comfort food, but it's not always the healthiest stuff. I've come up with a really simple turkey recipe that you can use all week long, have 3 different meals that taste so good. They're going to give you that comfort food feeling, but they're going to be nice to your waistline. So I'm going to use ground turkey. We're going to first start out with some fresh parsley. And I just want to show you really quickly how to cut this because people buy all kinds of gadgets and contraptions or they think it's too hard. So I'm going to start by just taking the leaves off of the stems. Oh, you can already smell the fragrance of those oils. This is just a flat leaf parsley. And I'm going to chop about 1/4 of a cup of this. So let me get this kind of back in there. Put that over here. It's very simple to do. You're just going to take the point of your knife, and that's never going to leave the cutting board. You're just going to leave that right on there, and you're going to rock your knife, and you can even hold the tip of that knife down. You're just going to rock your knife, kind of fan it out back and forth, and you need to bring your little pile back together. Let's scoot that over. So here I've got about 1/4 of a cup. I'm going to slide it over to the side a little bit. And get to work on the mix. It's a very simple mix. We're going to use it for meatloaf. We're going to use it for meatballs. We're going to use it for soup. This is great. You're going to love this. I'm going to start with 1 egg. And 1/4 cup of milk. And I like to mix in my wet ingredients and my spices first because the less you handle the actual meat, the more moist and juicy and tender it's going to be. If you work it too much, it's going to be kind of hard, and nobody wants a hard meatball. Okay, so to the egg and milk, I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of paprika, 1 teaspoon of garlic salt. You can use garlic powder and garlic salt separately if you like. Sometimes one shot and you're done. It's a little easier. I've got 1 teaspoon of ground sage and 1 teaspoon of dried oregano. Mix that up again. Now to that I'm going to add 3/4 of a cup of breadcrumbs. And these are plain breadcrumbs. You can use Italian breadcrumbs if you like, and that's perfectly fine. But if you're going to do that, I would cut the spices down to about half a teaspoon of paprika, garlic, sage, and parsley. I'm going to add my nice fresh parsley to that. Give that one more quick mix. And it already almost looks like the meat is in there, the turkey. Is turkey meat? Poultry meat? It's just poultry. I think it's meat. And now I'm going to add my ground turkey. And I like to choose a lean ground turkey. People automatically assume since it's turkey, it's going to be lean, but that's not necessarily the case. Just like ground beef, you can get it where it's 85% or 15% fat and 85% meat. This is, I believe, 97% fat-free. Does that make sense? 3% fat? I like to have a little bit of fat in there, though, because it does give it kind of a little more nice flavor. And we're going to use our hands, so be prepared to get dirty. And I love this mix because it's so versatile. And depending on how you cook it, you can really infuse the other flavors of sauces or whatever you like. So you can really change it up so it doesn't feel like you're eating the same thing. So you can see that nice green parsley kind of popping out there. A little bit. Gives it a nice little color. And I'm going to make some meatballs. The first thing I'm going to use this for is a basic spaghetti and meatball recipe. Super simple, super fast, nice and healthy. This is about 1.25 pounds of ground turkey. I don't know if I mentioned that. But I'm going to use half of it to make meatballs for the spaghetti and meatballs, and the other half I'm going to save for something I'll have later this week. So I'm just going to kind of use my hand and make a little kind of line down about half-ish. You don't have to be super precise. So this half I'm going to keep, that half I'm going to save. I'm going to start making meatballs. So when you're making your meatballs for spaghetti, you want them to be larger than a soup meatball, but not too big because you want it to cook through pretty quickly. So you would use about the size that would fit into a tablespoon. And you could measure that out or you can just kind of wing it. But with half of this, you're going to get about 15 or so good spaghetti-sized meatballs. So my last meatball is done. I'm going to give my hands a quick wash, clear off the space, and then we're going to make a super simple spaghetti and meatballs. So we've got about 15 of these little meatballs, and they're the perfect size. The first thing I'm going to do is brown them all up. Now I've got a pan, and I'm going to start it on medium-high. So it's going to be on like an 8 to 9 out of 10. Now once your pan starts to get warm, you're going to add about 1.5 tablespoons of olive oil. You don't need to add too much because we're just going to brown them up. We're using olive oil, which is the good oil, because we're trying to stay healthy. And about 1.5 tablespoons will do ya. We're not going to drain this at all. We're going to make the sauce right in on top of the meatballs. And that yummy turkey mix is going to give a nice, sweet flavor to that sauce. We're just going to make sure that that oil is nice and hot because you don't want to put your food into oil that's not so hot because it'll just suck up the oil. When the oil is nice and hot, it's going to start to instantly fry it, and it's going to give it that nice kind of crunchy exterior. So my oil is nice and hot, and now I'm going to add my meatballs to them. And this amount is perfect because it allows me to give a little space between your meatballs. You don't want to crowd your meatballs. Otherwise, they're just going to steam each other. And you want them to be nice and kind of have that crunchy texture. You want them to be caramelized. And these are probably going to take about 3 to 4 minutes, and then you're going to flip them over and do the other side. The thing is, you don't want to flip them too soon because they'll tear. And that's kind of your meatball telling you it's not ready to be flipped yet. So if you try to roll it over and it's sticking, just let it go for another minute or two because you really want that side to be ready. Otherwise, when you flip it, all the meat's going to stay stuck to the pan. So it's been about 3 minutes. I'm going to start turning these over. And you can see they have a nice little kind of brown, crunchy crust on the bottom. That's going to be so delicious. And any little bits that do stick, they're just going to add to the flavor of your sauce. So when we're going to pour in our tomato sauce, we're going to kind of use that to deglaze the pan. And if you don't know what that means, you hear people say it a lot, it means that when you're cooking something, those little bits that kind of get stuck on the bottom and get nice and caramelized, when you put a liquid in there, it kind of helps scrape them all up. So you're taking that glaze or that film off the bottom of your pan. And it makes for delicious sauces. Whoa, that guy was not quite ready. So when it looks like you're just about done, you want to turn your heat down to low or maybe like a medium low, about a 2 or 4 on the little dial. And one of the reasons you want to do that is when we add this tomato sauce into here, it's going to splatter. So you want to try to avoid that as much as possible because the oil and the juice kind of gets a little crazy. Now, I'm going to make the simplest tomato sauce, but it's going to be so good. You can absolutely use your favorite jar of pasta sauce if that's what you want, but this is so easy too, and you know exactly what you're putting in it. So that's why I like to make my own. So this is hot. Be prepared for splatter, but what I've got is 1 can or box, about 28 ounces of crushed tomatoes. And I like the crushed because it's thicker than the sauce, but it's also not quite so chunky like a diced tomato. That wasn't too bad. Just kind of mix it around here with our meatballs. And to this, I'm just going to add a few really simple seasonings. And it's easy because you just have to remember 1.5. So I'm going to add 1.5 teaspoons of garlic salt. I'm gonna add actually 1.5 teaspoons of sugar, and that's gonna help kind of mellow out the acidity that the canned tomatoes often have. And these are cool because they have two sides, so I'm not mixing. And then the last thing I'm gonna add is some dried parsley, and I'm gonna add about 1.5 tablespoons of that. So it's pretty easy, 1.5, 1.5, 1.5. Oh, not garlic powder. There's one, and about 1/2. And if you have any of that nice fresh parsley left over from when you were making the meat mix, feel free to use that. Just remember, the fresh to dry ratio is about 3 to 1. So you would use about 1/4 cup, maybe a little bit more of fresh parsley to this. And I'm just gonna give it a quick stir, and that's it. You wanna let this cook for about 10 minutes because you really wanna make sure that those meatballs are cooked through, and they're gonna add flavor to the sauce, but the sauce is also gonna give them flavor. Now what I like to do is I like to make this early around lunchtime and let it sit on the stove all day for like 3 or 4 hours. All you have to do is come in and stir it every once in a while, and you know, that's simple enough. And then it really makes a nice sweet caramelized flavor that just infuses the sauce, and it's so good. But that is how easy it is to make your homemade spaghetti and meatballs, turkey meatballs that are a lot healthier. So I'm just gonna cover this and I'm gonna let it go for a while. And then in the meantime, I would get my pasta ready. And I probably wanna do that about 10 minutes before I'm gonna serve lunch or dinner or whatever we're eating this with, because your pasta cooks pretty quickly once the water's boiling, and the longer this gets to sit on the stove, the better. So our meatballs and sauce are ready. They smell so good. You can see them in there bubbling away. And in the meantime, I've gone ahead and made a pot of pasta. I like linguine. If you like spaghetti, whatever floats your boat. So I'm gonna put this somewhere. We're gonna give this a try. Let's see. Grab 2 or 3 of these. And like I said, you're gonna get about 15 meatballs out of there. So if you do 3 per serving, that's 5 servings out of just 1/2 of the turkey mix. It's great. We got a little sauce. I love these tongs. They're like multi-purpose tools. A little bit more. Boy, it smells so good. I promise you, it is delicious. But don't take my word for it. Evan, why don't you come on over here for a minute? I'm gonna have someone else taste it today. I have some spaghetti.
Awesome.
Everybody, this is Evan. He is one of our cameramen extraordinaire. Here you go. It's kind of hot, so kind of burn yourself off with it. The drum roll.
Swish. Very good. Very
All
good.
right, well, there you have it. Super simple, healthy spaghetti and meatballs. When we come back, we're going to shrink down these meatballs and show you a way to get more healthy veggies into your family's diet. Don't go away. Welcome back. If you caught the first half of the show, you saw how we made this incredible turkey mix that we're going to use all week long in 3 different ways. And we did our spaghetti and meatballs, and now we're going to do a delicious soup. I started my soup like I usually do, with about 1.5 tablespoons of olive oil, 1 onion diced, but I also added 2 carrots, and they're finely diced in there. You can hear them sizzling, they're kind of doing their thing. And I wanted to start that first so I can get those cooking while I shape up my meatballs. Now these meatballs are going to be a lot smaller than the spaghetti and meatballs because you don't want to have a spoon with a big old meatball rolling off. So I'm going to actually use my little teaspoon here to kind of get the right amount so they're all uniform. Oh, just give them a little roll. And look, cute little teaspoon of meatball. And this will make about 30 meatballs. This is going to be a really healthy soup because I'm going to add some spinach to it, so you're also going to get some iron and some calcium. I'm going to add some barley to it, which is actually a super grain. Very good for you, and it's very underused, I think. So I'm just going to keep shaping these while those cook down. That's it. And actually, this ended up making 40 little meatballs. I think I said 30. I'm going to clear this off and give my hands a quick wash, and then I'm going to show you how to put together the rest of this super simple, delicious, healthy soup. So my carrots are nice and soft, the onions are nice and translucent, and you can see they're kind of sharing colors there. The onions are getting nice and yellow. And those are ready. So now I'm gonna add 5 cups of chicken stock. I'm just gonna pour it right into that vegetable mixture. Whoa. I'm gonna try to get most of it in the pot. That way you have a little more soup. There we go. Dry my mess off a little bit. Give that a quick stir. And we talked a little bit about deglazing before, and this chicken broth is gonna deglaze the bottom of the pan. All of that nice caramelized onion and carrot bits that are on the bottom are all gonna get up into that broth and have a really delicious flavor. So I'm gonna quickly bring that to a boil before I add my next few ingredients. The great thing about these little meatballs is being so small, they're gonna cook really quickly. So as soon as this boils, maybe 7 or 8 more minutes and your soup is done. So this is something you can throw together pretty quickly for a nice, hearty, healthy lunch. So our soup has come to a rolling boil, and again, this is just the broth, the carrots, and the onions. And I'm gonna add my 40 little meatballs. You gotta be careful, you wanna kind of, when you put them in, put them away so if it splashes, it doesn't splash all over you. Just gonna toss them all in, get in there. Woo. I don't know, it reminded me of a cattle roundup. Whoa, little doggies. Those are gonna cook really fast in this hot boiling soup. Now to that, I'm gonna add 1/4 cup of barley. You can add a little more or less if you want, or you can do noodles instead. I like barley because it's got more fiber, so it's a little more healthy than noodles. Although now they have noodles with protein in them and fiber and all kinds of stuff, so those can work too. And while that cooks up, I'm gonna get my final ingredient, which is just some spinach. And this is just big baby spinach. I'm gonna run my knife through it really quickly, not chopping it up finely, but just so that you don't get a piece that's this big. Although once you get it in the soup, it's really gonna wilt down a lot. And this is about 2½ cups. Or at least it will be when I'm done chopping it. And that's about it. I'm gonna let that come back up to a boil so those meatballs get nice and cooked through. And I'm just gonna take the spinach and I'm just gonna put it right on top. It looks like a lot, but once it cooks down, you're gonna see it's really not that much. But you're gonna add some extra iron, you're gonna add some extra fiber, and you're gonna add some extra calcium. So it makes it so healthy. Let's give that a stir, and I just love all of those colors. We just need about 10 minutes for that barley to get nice and soft, but look at that. Look how beautiful and healthy that looks. And it tastes good. And on these cold, rainy days, there's nothing like a nice hot bowl of soup. So the broth is nice and light, but you've got those hearty meatballs in there. It's a perfect combination. So it's been about 15 minutes and my soup is boiling, the barley is nice and tender, and my spinach is wilted down, and it's ready. That's how easy this soup is to make. So let's put some in a bowl and see how it tastes. So look at all that. You can just see all of that spinach and the carrots, the barley, see how big that's gotten? It's really wonderful, wonderful soup. It's very hearty. This is gonna fill your belly right up. Now let's give this a try. Actually, Evan, wanna come back? You are the taster of the day, the guinea pig. And it's hot, so make sure you blow on it because it was boiling. I want to blow a lot.
It's very savory.
It is.
A spin off of like a chicken and rice on this. But turkey's very delicious.
Now, does it taste at all like the spaghetti and meatballs you just had?
Not at all.
Perfect. See, that's what we're shooting for. Same thing, changing it up. All right, I'm gonna try it too. After the break, we'll customize this recipe to suit the individual tastes of each member of your family. So if you've been watching today, you've seen how we've taken one recipe and changed it up to make 2 totally different meals. Well, I'm going to show you another way to use that same ground turkey mixture. And this is the same thing, the turkey, the breadcrumbs, parsley, and some spices. This time we're going to use it to make mini meatloaves. And what I love about these is that they're individual size, so you're controlling your portion, but we're also going to change them up a little bit so everyone who likes different things can each get what they like. Well, I've got my mixture right here, and I'm starting out with a hot pan. I'm gonna very lightly saute some onions and some peppers. And I've got about a 1/4 cup of onions and peppers. And the only reason I'm even cooking them, because normally you can put them right in the meatloaf, is that I want to kind of get them started. The mini meatloaves cook faster than a regular meatloaf. Woo! So if I have them started, it's just going to be faster. And we're always trying to save time these days. There we go. Isn't that pretty? I'm going to take these vegetables and add them to my meat mixture, my turkey mixture. Which, by the way, if you just love ground beef, you can absolutely make all of these with ground beef instead of ground turkey. I'm just trying to watch my weight a little bit and be a little healthier, so I'm using lean ground turkey instead. And I would recommend using a spoon to get it started because the veggies are pretty hot and you don't want to burn your hand. Okay, I think they're good. Now I can use my hands. Like I said before, you don't want to work this too much because then you end up with tough little meatloaves. This way you want them nice and kind of crusty on the outside, but juicy and tender and moist on the inside. Okay, we're about done. So I've taken a muffin pan and I've generously sprayed it with olive oil cooking spray. And you really want to make sure you do that because when you're using lean meats, they will stick to the pan. So I want to make sure that that's not an issue. And I'm going to portion these out using 1/3 cup measure. This is going to make about 8 of these little mini meatloaves. Scoop these little toppings over. Okay. You don't have to use 1/3 cup, but it just kind of helps make sure that you're getting the same amount for all of them, so they're all going to be the same size. And you kind of roll them into a little ball just because it makes it easier. And just plop them in there, pat them down a little bit. Move on to the next one. And my oven's been preheated to 350 degrees. So while that's heating up, I'm just going to finish getting these ready. And like I said, the great thing about this is you can kind of personalize them. My husband loves them when they're topped with barbecue sauce. So I'm going to put about a tablespoon of barbecue sauce on 2 of these. And I'll give him the big ones. I'm going to have 2 that I'm going to top with ketchup, which is a very traditional meatloaf topping. Or you can do a tomato paste with a little bit of mustard and brown sugar topping, which is delicious too. There's so many things you can do with these. And then the last 2, I'm just going to put a leftover turkey gravy that I had. My daughter loves the ones with the gravy. And that's it. I'm going to pop these in the oven for 25 to 30 minutes or until the inside temperature is 165 degrees. So you want to make sure you're using your meat thermometer, or if not, if you don't have one, leave them in there for at least 30 minutes because with poultry, you really want to make sure that it's cooked all the way through. So it's been about 25, 28 minutes and my little mini meatloaves are ready. I'm going to pull them out of the oven. Like I said, you want to make sure you give them plenty of time to cook because you don't want to eat raw poultry. Woo, hot. Oh, they smell so good. And look at that. So they haven't shrunk down to nothing and the sauces on top have kind of melted into the meatloaf. They're going to be delicious. You pull one out. Oh, I might need this. I always forget to put these on the right direction. I'm going to pull out one of the barbecue ones. There. And look how nice and small that is. That's about 3 3/4 ounces. So it's just under, typically 4 to 6 ounces is what your protein size should be. So this is a little smaller. So you can have 2 of these, you can have 1.5. They're perfect for your little ones, perfect size. And I would serve this up with maybe some rice or some pureed cauliflower and a nice green veggie. Well, let's give these a try. Evan, you want to try one more thing for me today? Like, I don't get paid enough for this. All right, awesome. So this is, do you like barbecue sauce?
I do. I love barbecue sauce.
There you go. Bump. Want me to hold? There we go.
There you go. Very tasty.
It's good with the barbecue sauce, isn't it? Yeah, those are my husband's
It
favorite.
adds a whole lot of flavor.
It really does, and it doesn't really taste like the spaghetti that we had or the
Not
soup.
at all.
So we're taking one recipe and we're using it 3 different ways. You can make a double batch. These, if you leave the sauce, here I'll hold that for you. If you leave the sauce off, you can toss them in the freezer and pull them out whenever you need it. And yeah, we're good to go. Let me give it a try too. Can you hold it?
Sure.
So I hope you enjoyed the show today, where we've taken one easy, healthy recipe and made 3 delicious comfort foods that I'm sure you and your family are gonna love. If you missed anything on today's episode, you can check us out on cox11.com or on cookingfromtheheart.tv. Don't forget to like me on Facebook at Karen is Cooking from the Heart. And remember, you don't have to be a trained cook or chef to make delicious, healthy comfort foods for your family. You just gotta cook from the heart. I do need Judy.
A.B. Mark.
That's gonna like. Oh, are we? Hello,
Yes.
I'm Karen. I could never do that. Oh God.
Yeah, they're rolling everywhere.
There's
A.B.
more
Mark.
girls in here.
Thank you. And great job, Karen.
So I hope you've enjoyed the show. See?
Yep.
So if you're watching today, nope.
3, 2. Okay, you're rolling. I'm rolling. And anytime, man.
Cooking from the heart, too.
Okay. Are we done? Okay. I just want to get a t-shirt, dork.
I got all kinds of outtakes this time. This is gonna be good.